And it is exactly 6:30. So I will call the
May.
the May 8th meeting to order. And a roll call, please.
All right, Manager Lowe,
Here.
Manager Schmaltz,
Here.
Manager Baki,
Here.
Manager Tate,
Here.
President Anderson.
Here. Okay, thanks, everybody. Mike will not be here tonight, nor will Emily. But we've got a full board, and so onward we go. It's a big agenda. Obviously, some things aren't going to take too long, others will take longer, so let's get going. Is there anything to add to anyone that wants to add to the agenda? I have a couple of things to add, but
Well, I'll just add the North Shore Circle Park shoreline
Yeah.
restoration.
Yeah.
Cover letter, so you've got that, it's probably in old business.
old business, C.
See, okay,
And then I wanted to add, under new business, H, Pizza Pub shoreline issue, and this is just for information. We're still doing some background work on it, and hopefully we'll have more to give the board on the next meeting on the 22nd, I believe, of May. But I wanted you to be aware of it, so we'll just spend a minute or two just showing you the before and after pictures so that you have some context. And I think that is it, according to my notes. Anyone else have anything? Okay, I'll make a motion to accept the agenda as amended.
and I'll second that.
Thank you.
Right. Manager Lowe,
Aye.
Manager Schmaltz,
Aye.
Manager Baki,
Aye.
Manager Tate,
Aye.
President Anderson.
Aye. Thank you. Next item of business is, under the new business category is, permit 24-013. Bayovnik subdivision. And who's going to, address this?
I can introduce this.
Okay.
So as you said, this is permit 24-013, Bayovnik grading. It's located on the corner, where North Shore Trail meets North Shore Circle. It triggers, rules 3 and 4 for erosion control and a wetland buffer. And with that, I will pass it on to EOR.
Who's
Thank
here from
you.
the-
Thank you, Victoria.
Okay.
If someone could pull up the figure, that'd probably be helpful. There we go. Yeah, so this is a fairly good sized lot that's being subdivided. There is a existing house on the lot, but the act of subdividing the lot is triggering the buffer rule for both kind of the existing home area and the new house area. So based on the wetland type, our rules require a 50-foot buffer. They did utilize the averaging, which allows them to go down to minimum of 25 feet in some places if they include extra buffer in other areas. They included some extra buffer near the channel area that goes through the site, and then some extra buffer on the back end of the site. So overall, I think that's all a good thing to have that native buffer between the wetland and those houses. Associated with the one house pad construction there, they do meet our typical erosion control requirements with perimeter control and a double row of perimeter control where it's immediately adjacent to the wetland there. So I am recommending approval with those pending items that are in the report. We've got one minor tweak that is needed to the maintenance agreement, then execution of that maintenance agreement, and then with the stipulation on that permit that the buffer markers be put in place before any earth movement or site construction.
Any questions?
Yeah, I have just one question, Greg. I drive by that area a lot over the last 10 years, and I'm just trying to understand the drawings here. So the purple means that that's gotta be upland, right? Above, that's not wetland.
Right, the green areas is the wetland, and that kind of extends out beyond the green. I didn't shade in all the wetland there, but basically the majority of the site is wetland. Where the two house pads are and spot for future pole building, that's all upland, and then the purple area is upland as well, but that will be part of the recorded buffer and need to be planted with, you know, perennial native vegetation of some sort.
So the green really doesn't extend much west from where it is today.
No, no, there's the one house and then the other house is going to be pretty much right next to it.
Because you know, when you drive by there, even where that yellow pad is, it's not even, it's just some dirt packed down right now. There's usually water in front of that to the left. When I drive by a lot of times, so. And then the whole, where it says block 1, that's all water in many cases. In fact, they cut all the trees down out of there about 5 years ago.
Yep, yep, that area is all wetland, and so that'll all stay wetland, and then the buffers will have to get established.
All right, I guess I'll have to take, you know, you've got the surveying work, but there was a lot of water in that place most of the year, so. I was surprised to see the big areas that were considered upland, but it is what it is, so we can vote on it.
Is that, it's not gonna have a basement, right? That house?
I don't think so. Let me see if I can zoom in and see or not.
Oh, their pads probably.
I think it has to be slab on grade. I don't think you could have a basement there.
It's slab on grade, Greg.
Oh.
Yeah.
And then
Thanks, Sandy.
Manager Schmaltz, I would say to your comment about it being wet, the delineation that was done was 5 years old, or was done 5 years ago, so it was still valid when we went out and looked at the site. We initially thought it was wetland as well, but when the original delineation was done for the property, it was found to be upland, and the delineation was still valid.
The delineation was done in the middle of the drought then.
It could have been, yeah.
So does that make a difference then? I mean, could it really be not have been wetland, but just been dry wetland?
That is part, we were in a drought, but the delineation does take into account, should take into account to drought years while doing the delineation. So the drought might have not affected it, but wetlands certainly can form and disappear over time. But the individual is following the Wetland Conservation Act, the law, so.
Okay, that's fine. Thanks, Mike.
You'll find out when they drill. Nothing's been drilled there, right, for a well? Is this well or city water?
That's, well, I think,
Yeah,
yeah, we have well, so.
Yeah. Well, they'll find out what the water table is. So we're voting on whether or not it meets our permit requirements, so it does. In that
Right.
case, if anything else happens, that's gonna be the city's thing to worry about. So
Yep,
is
it
there
does.
a motion? Yes. Mhm.
I was just going to say, yes, it does meet our rules, and yeah, the proper regulatory authority approved that wetland delineation line, so that's what our buffer needs to be set off of. I mean, the good thing is it's a nice size buffer, so if some of that is
Right.
marginal wetland, it will still be in that kind of protected buffer area.
Yeah, that was encouraging.
Right.
Honestly, when I read that, that's really, really good. Okay, who wants to make the motion, and then we'll have it open for the board.
I'll move to approve permit application number 24-013 with conditions stated in the April 28th, 2025 engineer report.
I'll second.
Seconded by Manager Taves. Any further discussion, questions? If not, roll call, please.
Manager Lowe,
Aye.
Manager Schmaltz.
Aye.
Manager Baki,
Aye.
Manager Taves,
Aye.
President Anderson.
Aye, thank you. Next is the Lessard Sam's Outdoor Heritage Fund grant applications.
Can take that one. Madam President, managers, this next agenda item is to seek authorization to apply for 2 grants. They're both from the Lessard Sam's Outdoor Heritage Council funds. One would be to develop and work on the Greenbelt or Open Space Greenway Initiative. And the other is some restoration plans for the Bone Lake South Wetland area that we are hoping to acquire here within the year. We're still working on the amount that we'll be applying for, working with staff and EOR to develop some prioritization for the Greenbelt area and identify parcels that we would be looking to purchase or obtain an easement on to create that Greenbelt or Greenway corridor. And then the Bone Lake South Wetland Restoration, we're working on. We know the activities, the restoration activities that we'd like to implement on the landscape, but we're working with EOR to develop the cost for that so that we can apply for the amount of money that would be able to cover those activities. Be happy to answer any questions, and there is a motion associated with this agenda item as well.
Well, we like to have the motions first and then do our discussion. So I will move to authorize the district administrator to submit grant applications to the Lessard Sam's Outdoor Heritage Fund and to execute the grant agreements if awarded. Is there a second?
I will second that.
Thank you, Manager Taves. Okay, open for discussion now and comment.
President Anderson,
Yes, Mr. Bucky.
Blaine, could you elaborate a little bit on what the restoration work on the Bone Lake South property might include?
Sure, I'd be happy to. We've got a number of initiatives that we're hoping to implement on that property. Primarily some wetland restoration. There's some legacy load associated with the old barn and cattle operation that was active many years ago, many decades ago, right on that wetland. We've done some soil excavation or soil cores to determine the extent of that legacy load. So one aspect would be removing that legacy load, creating some open water habitat, potentially impounding a little bit of water, restoring hydrology on that upper lobe of the wetland that's closest to Bone Lake. And then there's a number of other lateral wetlands that we'd like to enhance with vegetation or restoring some hydrology. And then throughout much of the property, we'd be planting it into native prairie and or oak savanna habitat. It's also some invasive species removal. Big picture, when we get everything that we'd like to accomplish, there'd be a trail system for public access. And just it would be a really nice resource, park-like resource for the local area. These funds that we're applying for now would help to take care of probably 80 to 90% of the restoration that we're looking to accomplish there.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah. sounds
Yeah,
wonderful.
I really like that idea.
I have a question on the first, I think it's first paragraph, second paragraph. It's talking more about the Forest Lake to Comfort Lake area. And it sounds like, if I'm not misinterpreting this, that you're looking for areas in that area or that portion of what we're doing here. Is that correct? Do you want more to add to this?
We've got a number of studies that have been accomplished by EOR that they've put together prioritizing wetland habitats. Also, areas that are flood prone that we could potentially store water. So we have a large list that we're trying to actually shrink down and get into a manageable package to submit for a grant.
Okay, and will the board see that list?
I believe so.
Okay,
That should be part of the grant request, right, Blaine?
Yes, it'll be included in the grant
Yeah.
package. So
So when that's done, we'll be able to see everything.
well, we want to do it before the grant is put in though, just to
Well, but
review it.
they have to
Yeah.
approve the grant request
Yeah.
before it goes in, so we'll see it.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Well, okay, I've got some sites that I've passed on, I know, here in the past, so in the Comfort Lake area. So I would like to talk with someone about that, maybe Greg, I can maybe send a note to you. And I'm concerned also about the Highway 8 impact in that area. I was reading the paper last week and there was an article about the update to the Chisago City Council. And it talked about how trees were going to have to be cut down next to the highway system in order to make it 4 lanes. They didn't say what side was going to be hit. Maybe it's a combination. But I'd like to get some information about that before we finalize this grant for Lessard Sam's. Because we're going to have to mitigate some of that impact somehow. And there are, like I said before, there are these areas where there are really nice wetland areas that we could save. All right,
Yeah,
so.
Can I just comment on that quickly? Just
sure.
a couple of things. If you do have questions or comments, I would say route those through Mike Kinney or Blaine. I'm actually going to be on vacation as soon as this meeting is over, and they can get in touch with the right person at EOR that's assisting with this. But my understanding of the grant is it's going to be fairly generic in that it will hopefully allow us to, we don't have like specific parcels like in hand or we have like a known landowner. So my understanding is it's going to be a bit more generic and mostly focused on the parcels that are immediately adjacent to the Sunrise River between Forest Lake and Comfort Lake, because we know there's a lot of large undeveloped parcels along that corridor that would be good to get protection on before they develop. So that's my general understanding of how the grant's coming together. It's not finished yet, and I know there's folks at EOR that are working on that and coordinating with Blaine and Emily and Kinney and everybody else. So we got a big team kind of trying to package something together here that would be appealing from a grant perspective, but then also gives us enough flexibility that, depending on which landowners might be interested, we can move forward with that. So just wanted to add that into the conversation.
Sure. Well, I think because these take a while to do, they also have money that goes over what we're used to, which is, 3 years typically. So Lessard Sam's grants are for 5, 10, 15 years. And so that's why I wanted to try to get the sites that I know are available that maybe you don't. And so we can add that to the list, okay?
Yeah.
That's the rationale.
Yep, I'd say if there's specific sites that you want to see on the list, get that over to Blaine and or Mike Kinney, and they'll
Will do.
get it onto
Thank
the
you.
right people.
Yep, appreciate that. Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, I have just kind of a broader view on this, it has to do with grants in general. This grant obviously is more for the Sunrise River area, so does this have some impact on flooding also, or just mainly conservation? Like,
Yeah, the prioritization that we're looking at, it does incorporate floodplain vulnerability or the ability to store some water in the landscape. Also incorporates connectivity, so it would be a true corridor. There's a number of other aspects as well, unique wetlands, et cetera, that are all kind of being compiled. And right now we've got kind of some general acreages that we're proposing to, that we could potentially try to acquire. Within that, we've got a number of parcels that, and some rankings associated with that. But there is, as Greg mentioned, some opportunity to be flexible with that approach. So we can bring, we're not the properties that we would identify here in the grant applications are not chiseled in stone. We have some flexibility to move things around as we would need to if we're dealing with multiple landowners. Some may be interested in working with us, and may not. So we're going to need that flexibility, and that'll allow us to bring parcels in, move the corridor around a little bit to try to maximize our efficiency and effectiveness implementing this program.
good, thank you. If this is a long-term program, so we're just submitting it now, and we'll have the results for maybe next year to move forward. If for some reason we don't get the grant, that means we won't be able to do this project until maybe a second time around. Do we have any backup plans for other possible grants we might be able to use to get part of it done? Oh, and the other question I have is what other grants, maybe we should ask Emily this to give us a report. What other grants do we have to support the flood mitigation program? You know, in general around Forest Lake and so forth, because we're not going to be able to do a lot of this work probably without grants, from what I can understand. So we should probably get a good assessment of what grants we got that we're looking to get in addition to this one and see to what extent we're covered.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so that maybe that's a follow-up question for Emily since she's not here.
Well, EOR might know some too.
Yeah.
But you know, the federal level's kind of shutting down here on
Right.
this kind of activity, so I don't think we can rely on the federal money anymore. That usually comes through, well, it comes through all of the agencies, honestly, in the different areas. But the money from the state comes from the legacy amendment, and so we're paying for that in Minnesota. And that's probably gonna be our most reliable source, but I agree with you, we need to make sure that we understand what is available. Because these are big projects, even 10%, you know, match on this is gonna be enormous for us, so we need to understand where the money's coming from.
Yeah, and I mean, Emily and EOR and everyone is obviously looking at numerous different grants beyond just this one. I know there's different sorts of grants specific to flood mitigation that we can look into, but this one definitely rose to the top of the list, and this is what we want to pursue at this moment, but in no way would it be limited to this. And I would also point out that, you know, whether we get this one or not, this in itself is not going to create a greenway corridor from Forest Lake to
No.
Comfort Lake, right? That's the, you know, we're talking like a 20-30 year vision. That's the type of project we're talking about here, and kind of leaving a legacy if we can really put this corridor together. So one step at a time, but this would be a big step if we got this one.
Thanks, Greg.
One other source would be the Lower St. Croix Partnership. We'll be talking about that later on, but there's a new focus to this kind of thing, so especially close to the waterways.
Okay.
So that will be good. Okay, anything else? Not, roll call, please.
Manager Logan,
Aye.
Manager Schmaltz,
Aye.
Manager Baki,
Aye.
Manager Taves,
Aye.
President Anderson.
Aye. All right, moving on to Lower St. Croix Watershed Partnership 10-year plan amendment. You could pull up the background for this.
Like the whole memo.
Well, there's pictures and all of that, the memo. And just to, did everybody get a chance to see this?
Yes.
Okay. So pull up the first one. I don't think anybody here, Emily's not here, so I will do this. Should we do the motion first?
I'll move to approve the Lower St. Croix 10-year plan amendment as presented.
There's a second?
I'll second that.
Manager Taves, thank you. Okay, so just to, let's get down to the map if we could. Okay, here we go. This is really what it's all about. And in the original draft for the partnership, it did not include specifically the network that is tributary to the Lower St. Croix. And so this is to cover that, what is perceived to be a missing part of explanation. This includes all the tributaries. The Sunrise River obviously is part of it, Goose River up north, and also I think the Rock Creek is the one on the very top in that yellow area, but I think I'm beyond the boundary actually. The pink area is really the kind of limit to Chisago County. And then above that is Pine County, and that's just a little bit, so I might have those names a little wrong. Yeah, Rock Creek, there it is. Okay, so these are all of those tributaries, like I said, waterways that are very close and directly go into the Lower St. Croix. So this wasn't explained this way in the original document. It was just left for all those, areas, the soil and water conservation districts or watersheds to handle that. But it makes more sense to treat this as a priority area in its entirety from the Lower St. Croix. And so that's really what it's all about.
Can we raise the graph up just a little so we see? Okay, thank you.
And there's the list right there.
Yeah, well, the Sunrise Creek isn't on here.
It is up at the top, up at the,
Should be, okay, yes, it is, okay. Okay.
yeah. So that means that having this be a priority area, and that's, I think, the next thing that we'll see in the next motion. I think there's two. It calls out these listed areas here as priority areas, which means that we will have more opportunity to get money from the partnership for our projects. So it's a good thing. It's at first I thought, well, gosh, this whole thing is about the St. Croix River, but having this called out the way it is now brings it all together. So it can be treated more as a project in coordination with the local entities. And so I just think it's the best way to go. Any further questions, comments?
Does this talk, maybe, there's another memo here too that
Mhm.
talks about getting more involved with preserving the natural
Yes,
forest. That's a separate issue, right?
yeah, that's
Okay.
a separate issue, but it's kind of along the same thing. This has, I think if you read that last paragraph, what talks about woodlands and forests and
Right.
high quality, high variety wetland areas, so, yeah, I think I'm not on that one yet, but.
I guess what I don't understand is why, I mean, these streams have been there all the time, so what's preventing people from working on the streams that go into the river?
Well, there isn't anything but preventing them, but instead of doing it in a haphazard way.
Yeah.
Because it might go over different boundaries for political boundaries. And this way, it pulls it into a more coordinated project. Like I said, for us, I think it's gonna be really important.
Okay.
Because it's gonna make it easier for us to get money along that area for the Sunrise. You can see, again, if you can bring us up to Chisago County. There it is, okay. You can see all those red lines as the Sunrise River. So it's not just down by us at the bottom,
Right.
but it is all of that way going up into, I don't remember the town, I think it's Sunrise that it exits. Up in the northeast part of our county, Chisago County.
So I did have one question. If you go to page 2, Cory, which is right below the table. Up here, yeah, right there. Scroll up a little higher. No, up now below. I want to look at the paragraphs below that. Right, number 3 there, where it says. So it says in the italics, it says direct drainage and direct catchments. The stream, river, or land area that drains directly to the St. Croix or Lake St. Croix, and that is downstream of a pollutant mitigating feature such as lake, impoundment, pond, or large wetland. So that's describing exactly what you said, except that in the bracket it says this does not apply in Sunrise River due to the significant pollution contributions from the entire subwatershed and the complex nature of wetlands, impoundments, and connected drainage areas throughout the subwatershed. So I wrote down there are we eliminated, question mark?
Not our area. What they're talking about is what comes out of our watershed and then starts into that Carlos Avery, is that right? Carlos Avery area. And that goes all the way up to, North Branch and beyond. You could follow those red lines on the Sunrise River on the map,
Okay,
but that's what they're talking about. They're talking about that. All of that area that, they don't have cities on this. See where the exit point is way up at the top of the pink area? Okay,
so that
So,
would be excluded.
from where we are down in the Forest Lake, Wyoming area. The Sunrise River, you can see those two little snake areas. One comes out of Anoka County. The other one is where it comes out of Comfort Lake on the right side. And then it snakes up to that area that we were just talking about, the exit point.
Right.
So,
I guess I'm not a legal person, but if I were a legal person, there's some question on what that means. So I'm just asking Chuck. Is there any possibility of clarifying this, Chuck, so we're not left out after we sign and agree to this whole thing? Chuck here?
Madam,
yeah,
yes, Madam President, board members.
Yeah.
I will just say I don't fully understand. Exactly, it might be because I need to look at the fuller document. But I've been assuming that it makes sense to President Anderson and the rest of you.
Okay, that's fine with me.
if we have 60 days to do this. So we do not have to do it at this meeting.
So,
So if we want to look into that further, we can.
so if my only question to you, Chuck, is if it makes sense the way it is, why did they put that bracket in there? If not to change what obviously makes sense. I mean, why would you legally do that? Unless there was a reason for it. I mean, if you left it out, then it would be absolutely true.
I think the qualifier for me, though, is that they're talking about those complex wetlands and how big and massive that area is. So we're before that. We're a tributary to the St. Croix,
Yeah, but we're
But-
farther away from the St. Croix than those other things you're
but
talking
it
about.
doesn't matter if it's a direct drainage to the St. Croix, and that's what we are.
Okay,
We're the headwaters of the Sunrise. So if we can clean up our area, then what goes into that Carlos Avery system, that very complex system, is much cleaner.
and my impression was that a lot of the things they cited in here are streams that go directly into the St. Croix. So my interpretation was that that's what they want to work on the St. Croix River, all those little lines coming out of the St. Croix is what they really want to focus on. And that they perhaps want to kind of take resources away from this big nebulous area up here that's so far away from the St. Croix. Where we've been able to get some fairly big grants already and put it into our area. So, I haven't been at the meetings, but I just know how this whole thing's working in the past, so.
Well,
I
I
want to
asked,
make sure we're not excluded.
I asked the question, not exactly like you're saying, but I asked about the Sunrise River down where we are. And I was told that that would be covered. That's covered in here. All these red lines are covered
Okay.
in this particular change they want to make. They're mapping out the direct drainage to the St. Croix. So all of these river systems, stream systems, follow that line and go right into the St. Croix.
Okay.
So, but let's get this qualified before we.
I haven't been to
actually
any of the
extend-
meetings, so maybe you want to go back and ask a more direct question about that, and why that
Well-
bracket's in there.
That's my understanding is that it does count. And what they're talking about again is that Carlos Avery, it's tens of thousands of acres. And that's a very complex system. But not where we're at. So let me clarify that. I will
Okay.
get that clarified, and then on the next meeting, we can vote on it. Is everybody comfortable with that? Okay.
Yes.
All right, then let's go to the next one.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
just to note, there is a motion on the table, so there should be a motion to table that motion.
I will make the motion to table our motion
And I'll second that.
until the second meeting of the board. Regular meeting, okay?
Do we have to vote on that motion?
Yes, I think so.
Manager Lowe,
Aye.
Manager Schmaltz,
Aye.
Manager Baki,
Aye.
Manager Taves,
Aye.
President Anderson.
Aye. Okay, let's go to the next one. This is on the forest management and woodland stewardship program. And that first one, the first page of the memo,
Oh,
okay, we there? It's actually on the cover one from the partnership, yeah. So it says partnership at the top in black. There we go.
wait, this is from us.
Oh, that's from you. No, go to the partnership. There it is, right there. Okay, so, look at what's proposed. And the lead agencies are mentioned. Obviously, it's gonna be the two lead agencies that we've always had. Chisago is the financial management arm, and, Washington Conservation District. Chisago has other duties besides being the financial representative, but, they'll be doing the work in the field as well. But it's to add forest management and woodland stewardship plans as eligible activities. And it was not called out specifically in the original plan, so this again is doing a little cleanup. Because these are important, especially as you get over to that south, to that northeast area of the area for Lower St. Croix. There's an awful lot of still really good tree stands, forests, small forests, larger forests, and wetland. Okay, so I don't know that we need to explore this anymore. It's just really adding those two areas. The budget, if you look at that, that's just rearranging the current budget to accommodate this change, a shifting of some of the areas that are a little more closer to being completed, and then moving those funds to this new one. Okay, is there a motion on this document?
Yes.
Here's a good thing that we can use. Oh, you found it. Okay, good. Does anyone want to make this motion?
I will make the motion to approve the Lower St. Croix Grant Work Plan Amendment as presented.
Thank you. I'll second the motion. Okay, any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Manager Lowe,
Aye.
Manager Schmaltz,
Aye.
Manager Baki,
Aye.
Manager Taves,
Aye.
President Anderson.
Aye. Thank you. The next item is the review of governance manual. Mike isn't here, so I'll just, mention a few things. We're not gonna do anything here. This is just a discussion. But the board, I have my 6 or 7 items, outlined here. And the suggestion from Chuck, which is a good one, I think, is that Chuck and, Administrator Kenny and myself will work on getting these issues together into a format that we can give to the board. And then walk you through why these things need to be changed, in our opinion. And then you can vote on that. There's no rush to do this, so we can do it when the agenda allows us. It might be, we're in May, it might be in the summer when we bring something back. But there are some items that do need to be changed. They're not urgent, like I said, but they do need to be changed, in my opinion. And so, we'll do all of that, at a future meeting. I just want to keep you posted. Do you have anything to say, Chuck, to add?
Madam Chair, well, one is to note that this does follow from the governance manual itself, which says that the board will review the policies every year. Part of the review is any necessary changes caused by changes in the laws, which would be my department. I don't believe that there are any such changes prompted by the changes in the laws. The other thing, which would be, President Anderson, if you just want to encourage the other managers to look through and recollect if they've encountered anything in the manual that they have a question about that might be a topic to be addressed.
Mm-hmm. Yes, please, anyone that wants to take that time up front, please do so and send in your comments or issues that you want addressed to either Mr. Kenny or myself. And then we can aggregate everything before we come back to you. Okay, thank you. Any questions from anyone?
Sounds like a good approach.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, very good. Next item is the wake boat control in Fresh Lakes. And if you could pull up, I hope you've had time to look at this. I received this about 3 weeks ago, I think. And so, I did bring it up, at our Comfort Lake Association meeting. We didn't have time to go into it in any depth, but just to keep the membership aware that this information in this package really kind of gives us a really good guideline on what to follow and how to do it. We'll have to check with Chuck, of course, on Minnesota laws, but here in the metro, but it's not a mystery anymore about how to do it. This lays it out. And if you want to use this information with your lake associations, just to keep them abreast of what's happening, that's fine. This comes from the association. It's called, I think it's COLA. It's the organization for watershed, lake associations. So I forget what I think it's a coalition. It was coalition of lake associations in Minnesota. So these guys have been around for a long time, this organization, and they do look at things more on a state basis, just like Lakes and Rivers does. Lakes and Rivers is more of an advocacy group now, and so they spend their time and money doing things with the legislature to improve laws and so on for lake properties and lake owners and the Minnesota lakes themselves, just to keep that clean water image going, not just with our organization, but also helping with the legislation. So Minnesota Watersheds partners with Minnesota Lakes and Rivers quite a bit. this is a fairly new organization to me. They've been around for about 25 years, I think. But this is really good work. So it makes it a lot easier. One thing I hope that we have, I don't think we do, but I asked staff or Mike to ask staff to take the map that's in this packet. Is there any way for you to pull that up? Okay, because it's in the middle of this document from them. But anyway, it's a map showing the areas in this particular map up north, or lake, I mean, on what exactly is acceptable in the lake for wake boats. And there is one for each of our lakes in the sub watersheds. So Forest Lake has one, Comfort has one. It didn't do Little Comfort because it's too small. And then Bone Lake has one as well.
President Anderson?
Yes.
Yeah, I really like the work that Aiden did on creating these maps. It really
Yeah, there we go.
shows how restrictive this could be for
Mhm.
wake boaters. May I ask if the Comfort Lake Association is taking any action on this? And if so, what is the plan?
Well, the current president really, we've discussed it at meetings. And people are very concerned about the damage that's occurring. You know, our lake's not very big either. Where's Comfort? Is this Comfort?
This is Comfort.
Okay, so you can see this is the middle of the north side of the lake, and you can't get from the first one to the second one. There's just not enough room, you know, to stay within those depths and requirements. This is all based on the scientific requirements that came out of the studies from the U of M research group. Can you pull to the bottom, pull it up a bit? Okay. This is an area also where it looks like you could do something, but if you look at the areas that are pretty not as deep, there's 10 and 15 feet. And a lot of times that's not enough depth for full action, nor is there any room for the boats to turn around and stay within that little red area. So this is going to help tremendously to get action. You know, what we're thinking about doing in Comfort Lake is just skipping over, well, I shouldn't say skip over, but go directly to the counties, because the counties have the ability to put restrictions on lakes. And there's a meeting next week on, I think it's Monday, for the Chisago County Water Plan team to work together, to come together. And I passed this on to the woman that's in charge of support for that group. And we're going to be talking about it at Chisago County. And so I personally think that's the best thing to do, is to go to the counties. I haven't talked to Chuck about this yet. He might have some other insights, but in general, that's the way that the Comfort Lake Association is going to handle this, is go to the counties. And that's, I think, again, the proper thing to do. The counties regulate the closing of the lake, or the low speeds when we have high water. And the sheriff's department acts as the conservation organization. There's a conservation officer attached to the county sheriff's unit. And that's who we go to when we have problems. I think it works that way with all counties. So you, I'm sure in Washington, have your own, probably several. It's a big county, or a big, county with lots of activity on their waters. So this is where we're at. I just, like I said, just wanted to show it to you. I was so impressed by what they've done. And I want to make sure that you all had access to this information, because it's a giant step forward on how to handle it. There's a sample ordinance involved as well. So I think our role as the watershed, and we've talked about this in the past, is just understanding the damage that these boats can do to your local lakes. Even Forest Lake, when we look at that one, Bone and Comfort are pretty much the same as far as I'm concerned. I mean, you have restricted areas that you can't get to really, and you can't really maneuver the boat within those areas. So it's almost impossible to take a boat on. But even in our area, what I was getting to before is that we have so much wave action when the boats come even down the middle of the lake. And it reaches the shorelines really quickly. And we've had kids, little kids that are out with their families being upturned in the water. And it's not a fun thing. It's hard to, even as an adult, stand up. It's like being in the ocean. If any of you have been in an ocean, you understand how that wave works. And, you know, you can get tripped up when the water is just slightly above your ankles. The power is there. That force is just incredible. The other thing, of course, is that it erodes shorelines. And so we don't want that. The other factor, this study still hasn't been done yet, but they're working on it, is understanding how it can pick up the bottom of the lakes and remix pollution items, and we don't want that. Yes, I am.
Okay, just a question. Chuck, I don't know how close you are to this, but what they passed up in some northern Minnesota lake, was that approved by the county through the DNR, or what was the legal ramification or path forward to get that approved? Do you know offhand?
Well, Manager Schmaltz, managers, I'm not directly familiar with that case, but the structure under state law is basically what President Anderson suggested. The authority to adopt such ordinances rests with the counties. Although when a lake is entirely within the boundaries of a city, then a city can also adopt an ordinance. But the counties principally are the surface, the entities to regulate the surface use, but they do so under DNR supervision. DNR has to approve the ordinance, and the DNR kind of maintains those model ordinances. So my understanding of what happened in Caribou Lake would be, the usefulness of that would be to indicate that the DNR is knowledgeable and engaged in this and is willing to help foster such regulations.
Okay, thank you.
It looks like Aiden has something to say as well.
I forgot you were gonna be on. Thanks, Aiden.
Yep, no
Go ahead.
problem. Thank you. And yeah, just to add a little bit of context, I had spoke to one of the folks involved in this effort, and their process had been to get this ordinance passed at the county level, and then the DNR reviewed the ordinance following the county agreeing to pass it. So they had just to make sure it was in compliance with state regulations. And so county first, DNR review, and then it was enacted.
So there's little that we have to do except to be involved. I mean, this leadership is gonna move forward probably without us at this point in time, so, correct?
Not in our area. I think that we have to, as with our lake associations, have to be involved and
Okay.
state the issue for our particular counties. I think the district, watershed district, can be involved by giving some background information on how dangerous these boats can be to small, especially small, but any actually lake in freshwater lake in Minnesota.
Okay.
They're meant for oceans. They're not meant for our.
So
All right.
basically, then you've got like any other ordinance, it's gonna be public opinion that passes it. So we have to make sure that enough people are concerned about this, that it encourages the
Not necessarily.
county to do the right thing.
Not necessarily. What we have is the science behind us now. We've got 2 studies. I'm gonna check on that second one. I don't think you've seen it, have you, Aiden? The one from the University of Minnesota?
Correct. They have not released the findings from their phase 2 study yet.
Yeah,
I don't have a good reason to why that might be, but I know that we are waiting for a peer-reviewed publication. They said in the first quarter of 2025, so we are awaiting that any day.
okay. The first one was talking more about how far away from the shoreline you have to be to make the shoreline safe. And so that's already released. That's, you know, been out for 2 or 3 years. And if we can get a statement from the district that would help support this effort at the counties to make sure that the shorelines are protected with our shoreline initiative. I think that would be good, but we have to wait until we get everybody here and have some time to talk to Chuck about how we might support it in that way. But I wasn't here with a full plan on how to do it, and I didn't want to take a lot of time
Okay.
explaining that, but we can talk about this at another meeting where we don't have such a big agenda. But I wanted you to have this so that you could start thinking about it and start talking to your lake association people about their feeling on how to do this. Because like I said, it's pretty well laid out so that you could talk to your association about how this happened on Caribou Lake and what they did about it. Okay, so we don't have to decide anything tonight, just I wanted to give you a little bit more background. And we've got that done. So moving on, next is the Minnesota Watershed Summer Tour. And it's just, again, making you aware that it's coming up.
There was a motion added to this one.
What's that?
The motion,
Oh, for the watershed?
yeah,
The summer
Chuck
tour.
alerted us that we needed a motion today. We didn't have one.
Oh, okay. That's something in our manual that we need to address, but anyway, our governance manual. I'll make this motion, I move to authorize managers and staff to attend the Minnesota Watersheds Tour and expend associated funds as necessary to attend.
Before I second that, I have a question. Are CAC members eligible
Yes,
to go to this? So we should adjust the proposal to include them,
yes, I think that's a good idea. We should encourage them to go to
right?
anything that they can to get a better background.
Especially if you want to get them to be on the board,
Yeah.
et cetera.
Well, let me amend
Yeah,
my
that would be great.
motion. To authorize managers, staff, and members of the Citizens Advisory Committee to attend, and you can continue with it just as it is.
And I'll second that motion.
Okay. Yeah, good point. Any further discussion? I'm just gonna say, this is way up north and, I'm not going to be going to this one. So if somebody else can go, that would be good, but if you don't, that's fine too.
I think I'm gonna go,
Oh, good, good. It's always nice to have at least one person
right?
attend. All right, no further comments, so roll call please.
Manager Lowe,
Aye.
Manager Schmaltz.
Aye.
Manager Baki,
Aye.
Manager Taves,
Aye.
President Anderson.
Aye. Thank you, everybody. Next item is the added Pizza Pub Shoreline. Again, this is just for information.
Oh, we want to vote the-
Yes, I'm waiting. Okay, Aiden, are you still on?
Yep, I'm
Is he still
present.
on? Oh, good. These are pictures that you took, correct?
Correct, yep.
Okay, this is part of the inventory, shoreline inventory work that Aiden did over the last few years, and you can see that shoreline area and the amount of natural plants that you have on the shoreline. And this is the picture that was taken by Mike Sandiger a week ago, last week. on work-
Aiden took that one as well.
Oh, did he really? Okay, sorry. I didn't know you were here. Thanks, Mike. Okay, so Aiden took both of these. But the point is, it was a permit that was issued. Why don't you talk about this one, Mike? You were directly involved more than I was, but.
Thank you, President. So Pizza Pub applied for aquatic plant management permit to remove the cattails. When Aiden was out doing his shoreline inventory, he saw the work going on the right and took a picture. We contacted the DNR and asked if the work being done was within their permit. And from the response we've gotten from the DNR, they did not find any violations. Is there any more information you'd like me to provide, President Anderson?
No, have you identified whether those piles along the shoreline are just the plants? Root structures that haven't started coming up, or has that been damaged?
With the DNR finding no violation, my assumption is that they found that any dirt material on the shoreline was brought up with the plants, would be my understanding.
Okay,
Yeah, just the broader view of this, you know, when we started our shoreline program, I spent quite a bit of time looking at the DNR requirements. And I was aghast at what they allow. Not only do they allow small little areas for like beaches and that, but they'll allow you to move up to 100 feet from the shoreline. So that's exactly what happened here. So, you know, and this gets back to what we had talked about before. We have a lake that's in dire distress with, you know, lack of natural shorelines. The DNR needs to provide some support to their own program for lakes that need help to keep stuff like this from happening. I mean, they should provide the minimal part of their rules at best on a lake that has something like we have right now with our situation. So that's a battle we're gonna have to fight, but we need to get them out to our first meeting and then work up the chain of command. But this is really a great example. And what's gonna be interesting is when their shoreline goes back another 4 or 5 feet in the next 2 summers, and it starts to encroach on their building, and they come back and want to add 50 feet back, the DNR is supposedly not allowed to do that. So it'll be interesting to see what happens when that happens. So, because this shoreline is going to be gone very quickly with the prevailing southeast winds that come out all summer long. So kind of interesting situation.
well, especially all of the boat traffic that comes into that shop area too.
Right.
So it's not just 1 or 2, it's, you know, I think there's what, 20?
Yeah.
14, 15, 20, something like that, docks or slips, I mean, on the dock in front of this building on the water.
So maybe I can ask Aiden, do you know who's leading this effort to get the DNR into one of our meetings to talk about this situation so we can frame it up and present our case to them? And then maybe we eventually have to move up the chain of command and go down to their offices eventually, or to Bowser, either way or both.
Well, let me fill you in on what I know so far.
Okay.
My understanding is that Mike was going to take care of, I think he knows that the commissioner of the DNR. And I happen to know one of the 4 assistant commissioners, Shannon Lothammer. She was actually the person assigned to us in the early phase of forming the district. After the court case was resolved and settled, and $12,000 was set aside to do the first diagnostic study of Comfort Lake and its sub-watershed. And Shannon Lothammer came to us as from the MPCA at that time as sort of the state overseer of the process. And she is now a assistant commissioner, one of them. And I left a message for her today, and she was out, but hopefully she'll call back within the next 10 days or so. And then Mike might be able to contact, I think like I said, I think his contact, can't say for certain, is the actual commissioner. But we can start there. and tell them about this situation, and they're very familiar with all the efforts that the DNR is putting forward on saving our natural shorelines and restoring our natural shorelines. So, we're gonna start there and sort of build, downward, because the people that did this are going to support what they did. And if it's in the rules right now, then obviously something needs to change, because this is just not gonna happen, or not gonna work. We're not gonna be able to accomplish the goal of naturalizing our shorelines if the DNR is going to allow them to become this damaged. So that's where it's at. We'll keep you posted and put it on the agenda as soon as we have something concrete. And we'll be working with Mike Sandiger and Aiden, I'm sure, on local issues too.
Both Chris and Aiden have their hands up.
Oh, okay, well, who was first? Aiden, I'll start with you.
All right, thank you, President Anderson. Just to add another bit of information to Manager Schmaltz's question. I've been participating on a subcommittee of the Minnesota Natural Shoreline Partnership, and we are currently working on a white paper that is essentially a list of recommendations to the DNR based on the experiences of a number of agency staff. And so this will be, just part of this discussion that we'll be initiating with the DNR, in which they've been participating in the drafting of this white paper. So the issues have certainly been recognized. We're working on those right now. So stay tuned, as Manager Anderson said.
Great job. Thanks, Abe.
That's really good news.
Great to have you get involved like that with all your experience. So thank you.
When your manifesto is done, your recommendations, can you please share that with the board?
Yep, absolutely. We are putting together a final draft of our white paper that will go to the larger partnership. And then once we're at the larger partnership, I will have something to share.
Perfect. Thank you. That's very encouraging. All right. Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. Chris?
Thanks,
Manager
President.
Luth?
Thanks, President Anderson. I guess this is more for a conversation once we bring in the DNR, and maybe it's just my own lack of understanding, but and mission, vision, value statements are on top of mind just because of the amount of time that we had just spent working on ours. But if you look at what the mission of the DNR is, I can't understand how they could at the same time follow that mission and allow something like this to happen. I just don't understand. I frankly just don't understand how that's possible, to be honest with you. So maybe some sort of explanation could be had at some point.
Well, I think what Aiden is doing with this work group is really going to help a lot. But who's involved in that group, Aiden?
It's a number of SWCDs and watershed districts.
Okay.
I task SWCD, Washington Conservation District, some nonprofits as well. And then DNR Fisheries has had I think several divisions of the DNR have had an active presence in that as well.
Okay, wonderful. So it's a broad group, and that's wonderful.
And that's just the subcommittee. The larger Minnesota Natural Shorelines Partnership is much broader and has a very large, diverse membership of agencies and nonprofit folks.
Okay, terrific. All right, any other questions? Okay, let's move on. Old business program signage.
Madam President, that is a couple of quick items I have on here. I don't know if Corey wants me to share my screen.
Yeah.
Oh, you got a slide up there. Sorry, go ahead. So been working with Pinnacle Marketing. So project signage is part of education. We have several projects that need signage out there. Several of them also have grant funding that will expire in December. WJD 6, the Highway 97 project, as well as Moody Lake, those both have grant funds available till December. So we're trying to hustle and get some of those up there. So we've been working with Pinnacle Marketing to try to come up with some ideas for signage that take into the factor of the location, different factors there. And you can see the list up there. Been working with Pinnacle. We've been going around and around on this. But some of the factors for some of these big projects that are along the highway, we got to think about how fast people are flying by there. Highway 97, 55, 60 miles an hour is not uncommon. Font size we shoot for so people can actually see that is 1 inch of letter per 10 feet. So for this one, we'd be looking at 7-8 inch minimum letter height. And then we want probably round up for safety to go up to 10-inch tall letters. And we don't want to make the signs so busy. We want the information there, the watershed logo, partners, that kind of stuff on there. Because again, we have about 5 seconds that people are going to see these signs if they're driving the speed limit or thereabouts. So we took one example, and that's the WJD6 sign that I have some examples up there, mostly just to get the board's feedback. Are we on the right track? And then based off your feedback, then we'll bring a kind of a few more designs back, and then we can approve one. But again, we're looking at 10-inch letters, simple design, high contrast, kind of clean layout, get the information out there, get the project partners, probably a sign that's going to be 8 feet by 6 feet minimum, which is a big sign. And then high visibility lettering, keeping in mind our brand standards and things like that. So Tori, do you have the examples? Do you want me to share my screen?
Can you pull them up?
Sure. You got to let me.
Yep.
And pretty much what I just said, and then we threw together a few examples. Hopefully, can you see my screen with the first version up there?
Pull up, still kind of, yeah, thank you.
So the first version, again, we tried to come up with simple, impactful, they're large signs, people are flying by there, so we got to have the info. This was the first one. Again, trying to highlight it's a watershed project, here's the partners, and then a general name for it. That was the first version. Second version, Pinnacle thought maybe we do black on white or white on black letters, more impactful, kind of stand out a little bit. And again, the financial partnership, things like that. And then the last version, here's the third version, again, using our brand standards, our colors, our logo, things like that. So I'll open it up if there's any discussion. I don't know if folks have looked at these ahead of time, if you have any feedback. Again, we're not looking for a decision tonight. I'm mostly looking for a little, we think this is good, we'd like to tweak that, and then I'll bring kind of some more recommendations back.
Rather than taking what could be a long time to have everybody's likes and dislikes, can we submit these to you within the next week?
Absolutely.
Because I think everybody's gonna have, their own obviously likes and so on. And if we do it that way, and there's some wording that I like, but it's not on the right one for me, the graphic for me. So there's gonna take some time to explain all that. If everybody else has that kind of thing too. It's, I think, easier if we submit to you by next Thursday. How's that sound? It gives us a week.
Madam President, works for me. And then one thing to somewhat keep in mind is we're looking for a general signage that we can use, or kind of a general line layout that we can use at a lot of our larger projects that are near highways in this. So we don't have to necessarily reinvent the wheel every time. We could tweak the sign a little bit. So kind of think about that a little bit too.
Yep. Okay, I think it's a good first start. I really do. So good work from Pinnacle. Yes.
Hey, just a quick question. Have you or your team have done any benchmarking on what other watershed districts are using for projects that were drive-by?
Manager Schmalz, we did, and I communicated with quite a few watersheds. The feedback I got from a lot of them is they don't do large project signage. It's super expensive, and unless it's in the grant itself, So our next comparable one was like state parks or county park signage. That was very comparable. A lot of the watershed signage that other watersheds are doing are the interactive ones, like we're gonna do with Moody, that people can walk up to, read, interact, that kind of stuff. The big drive-by signage, there's not a lot of, I didn't get a lot of benchmarking feedback from other watersheds. It's just not something that they do.
Okay, that's a good input. I did, mainly because of the expense then.
Correct. And we've got, for this project, for the WJ86, we've got 10 grand earmarked. That's for the sign and probably the installation, because I really don't see us as staff installing. It's a large sign. It'll have to be cemented in. It's a wetland area, so, you know, height plays a role. We'll probably be in the fall or the winter installing out there. So a lot of those factors play in for the signage.
Do you know what an estimated price is for this type of sign?
So my previous employer, we did some large informational signage. Granted, that's not in the metro area, but $5 grand for a 4x8 sign was not atypical by any means.
Is that front and back, both sides?
Correct. Yep.
We're talking about 6 feet tall by 8 foot to 10 foot wide. So double
Yeah.
that number then?
Yeah, and
Right.
we'll have to get some bids from metro folks. You know, I don't know what the price range down here would be compared to central Minnesota, but yeah, once we get to the design kind of the sizes, then we'll reach out and get some prices.
What about Pinnacle? Do they do sign?
They do not. They had a few contractors that they knew of, but again, they're based out of, you know, Bemidji neck of the woods up there. So we
Sure.
need to look at metro.
Okay. Well, let's stick with just getting the signs that we like, you know, together, our input on that first, and then we'll talk about the other component, the next step. I do think that there's some merit on signs that are more park-like and that kind of thing, to have those interactive signs. I agree with that. You know, something that's a little bit more park-like wood, you know, with maybe a sign over it if we have to, or the engraving that happens with wood. So, we can talk about all of that stuff next, okay? Good.
Manager Lopez is hand raised.
Yes, Manager Lowe.
Thank you, President Anderson. I was just wondering if, and maybe Adam can answer. I know this is focused around the project signage, but we've also talked about like boundary signage. And I think the last time we talked about it, we wanted to see how some of the other watersheds had success working with whatever group kind of controls what goes up on a roadway. Is there any progress to speak on that, or is that something that we'll get updated on later?
Manager Loth, I can quick comment. There's nothing new. Information on most of the watersheds that I've reached out to, the signs they have are grandfathered in, and most of the counties in the state do not allow it in the public, like in the road right away. So we'd be looking at private land. They deem watersheds as not like a priority signage. You know, it's not like a school sign or a warning sign or traffic sign or anything like that. So they're very hesitant to allow those in road right away.
So Adam, will that argument pertain to us like on Highway 61?
Yeah, we'll have to have them in the project area. So not in the public, not in the road right away. So they'll actually be on the project site itself. Another reason they have to be so big, because they're a ways off of the road.
And then the right of way is 30 feet from the center of the road, right? Or is it bigger on a highway?
Every road's a little different, 33. There's some that are 66 foot from the center. So it depends on the, you know, county road, township road, state highway. Every county can be a little bit different, but 33 and 66 are the common ones.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, let's move on. State of the watershed. This is just discussion tonight as well. I think that's yours too. Adam.
Correct.
Can you see my screen?
I
I
can.
cannot.
Okay, that's.
Mm.
Give me just a second.
There we go. So Madam President, managers, just again, a quick discussion item. Looking at or working on planning on this fall State of the Watershed event. Looking at September 30th, I've met with the Legion several times. We know we want the big room. So we're competing with some weddings and bingo and other events they have. So we're somewhat limited on the dates if we'd like to stick at the Legion. So September 30th popped out as a date that seemed to be a priority. Similar time frame, 5 to 8 p.m. Do you have the memo on here, Tori? You or not? I can add the schedule on there too. It's pretty much the same as we had last year. A little bit of social hour, then presentations, then food, and then we do the Watershed Champions at the end. So just looking for any feedback on that. Does that date work? Does it not? Do we like the Legion? Kind of down that road.
Well, I like the Legion. I think it gives us the best opportunities. They can have different size rooms too, you know, if we don't need all the space that Forest Lake had, for example. But this was actually designed to be an annual thing. So I'm glad we're getting back to that because it's, you know, like we talked about before, the media now is not the same, the local media, as it was, you know, back when we were doing the early work. And so I think this makes a lot more sense. Having our champion awards given out at the same time, of course, is another draw. Having some meal is another. So yeah, I'm glad you're doing this. Anyone else?
Is the American Legion the only venue we've looked at, or are there other possibilities?
Manager Baki, we did look last year. We looked at other venues. Nothing compared price wise. Most were significantly higher than that. So you know, we had good luck with the Legion. I know Forest Lake Associations had good luck with them. So that's the only one I priced out for this year.
Adam, can you just refresh my memory? Did we have to pay for the room or did we get the room free because we were buying food and so forth?
Correct, the latter. As long as we're getting food there, then we get the room for free.
Okay. I thought we had a very successful one the last time we had it. Was our 25th anniversary also, of course. But one of the comments that Fran Miron mentioned to me after the meeting was that he was very impressed with the meeting. And he kind of said, I guess it's probably, you guys probably spent about $5,000 on this thing. He says, you know, it's public money, but I guess it's probably worth it. So he was in his own mind questioning that we were spending public money on food. So I think that requires some discussion from the board on whether we want to do that again or whether we want to look at some other options.
Well, Fran said something different to me, and Mike was standing there, and I think maybe a couple of staff people or a couple of other folks in the audience. What he said is that he's never seen any other watersheds in the area that he's, you know, Washington County, do anything like this. And he thought it was a really good idea. Everybody was engaged, the food helped. And so he just thinks other entities should be doing this. So
Interesting.
yeah, it is, but that's what he said. So, and we knew it was right all along.
Are there any, I mean, we have a whole book of governance rules. Are there any statutes, Chuck, that apply to spending public money on food for public events? Now, we do it as a lake association, and we're spending the members' money, but they don't seem to care too much. But, you know, if we had 400 people show up at $10 or $15 a head.
Tell them we're paying for it with the interest we earn on our savings account. That's $5,000 a month. Done, paid for.
I'm just raising the question.
I mean, if we had
Just
400
looking.
people, if we had 400 people show up to a meeting, whatever that cost is, the ability to connect with 400 people, I think if you looked at what, you know, other forms of communication and engagement would cost us, that's how I look at it. I understand we're feeding people, but I mean, like I said, 400 people would be
we gotta make sure we're not trespassing on any kind of rules or regulations. We have such crazy rules in government that I can't believe that this couldn't be a problem for us, but Chuck, that's why I asked you if you can maybe look into this and offer any comments about your thoughts on that situation.
Yes, Manager Schmaltz, managers, there's not a specific prohibition on that, so it falls into the category of you as a board exercise your judgment that the expenditure is to advance the district's purposes. And as Manager Lowe suggested, if you find that it's a good way to get a lot of people educated that results in benefits and progress for the district, then you can justify it that way. And as long as Commissioner Miron and his colleagues find you to have used good judgment, you're in good shape.
Yeah, okay, that's encouraging to me because, I was president at the time and he made that cautious comment to the president and he talked more positively about the people that put it together. So, so maybe there was a omission in his statement to the president about that. So
Was that an after the event?
afterwards,
After
yeah.
the event, yeah.
Right. He was very positive, but he definitely had thought about figuring out how much this thing cost us. So he made a good close guess. So, but I'm hearing what Chuck says. I think we should go for it because I think it's a good way to go. I just
Yeah.
didn't want to back ourselves into a corner that we didn't want to be in.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, I should have recorded him, but he was very excited about the whole thing.
Well, if you have a witness, I don't have a witness, so
Well, there you go. Maybe you misunderstood.
maybe I did.
Okay, so let's move on. Program project update.
Old business still. We have added North Shore Trail.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you, Tori. Yep, it's right there on the side too. Okay, we have item C under old business, the North Shore Circle project. This was kind of an emergency ad at the late afternoon level. If you could pull that up. I think Mike sent a copy of this to everyone in late afternoon. You may not have seen it. Do you have it? Okay.
Sorry,
Otherwise-
I could have said that a lot nicer. Okay, here we go.
There we go.
Send share with everyone else.
Mhm. Thank you, Tori. Okay, if you want to quickly read that, it's basically saying that this project that we've been talking about, the bids came in and everyone wanted to move quickly on this because of the weather conditions and get it in the ground because it's optimal for the material plants to start growing again and faster because of the weather that we're having now is ideal. Is there anyone here from staff that? Aiden, do you want to talk about this? I think you're involved in it, right?
Yep, this is a project that I've been leading for the last couple of years, honestly, along with
Mhm.
Emily on the grant writing side of things, of course. This is a shoreline restoration on North Shore Circle Park, which is basically a vacant city lot on just off of Hayward Avenue, kind of that wetland peninsula area on Forest Lake. The city recently did a stormwater basin construction there and has essentially that, I guess that's about it. The residents had been told that there was likely going to be a shoreline restoration of some sort, yet that did not materialize. So we stepped in. Emily was able to write a really great grant application. We received a DNR Conservation Partners Legacy grant, and we've been able to partner with the city on getting this restoration underway. So final quotes came back at the beginning of April. We worked with one of the contractors to put together a good project, and we will be using some funds from our Midwest Glacial Lakes Partnership grant for this as well.
So it's 100% covered by grants?
There is a match for it. I can't recall exactly what the match for the DNR grant is. I want to say it's 10%, but then yep. And then there's it's state match, or excuse me, there's state and federal grants being used on this site.
Okay. All right, well, because you've got multiple sources, you know, sometimes that covers that match area for us too, but it's still all good.
Yeah,
does the
I
city-
believe that, go ahead.
Does the city have any money into this, Aiden? Other than
The
the
city
property?
does not. The city does not. They have been
They charge
very,
us for Did they charge us for cutting all the trees down when they started?
well, if they had not cut the trees down, this job might be a little easier. We'll be replacing those trees. One component of the park is a gravel path and pad. That is not an eligible grant expense, and so the city will be adding that later in construction. So that would be one of the costs that they are donating, I suppose, or contributing, I should say.
Perfect.
Wonderful. Well, nice job.
Yeah, good. It's gonna be a great showpiece for us, for everybody can stop in. It's off the beaten path, and so it'll be well used, I'm sure.
And we can get it done earlier
You're right.
than expected.
So I'm gonna move to direct the administrator to enter into an agreement with Shoreline Landscaping to implement the North Shore Circle Park shoreline restoration for a sum of $34,655.50.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Manager Lowe. I was hoping it would be you. Now you've got two Forest Lake folks on this, so that's really nice. Good. Okay, any further discussion? All right, all those in, oh, no, sorry.
Manager
Roll
Lowe.
call.
Manager Schmaltz.
Aye.
Manager Baki.
Aye.
Manager Taves.
Aye.
President Anderson.
Aye. Well done. All right, next item, program and project update. Blaine, are you still here?
I am.
All right, you're
Thank
on
you, President
again.
Managers. Not a whole lot to update on projects other than the big news is that we did close on the property for the Heath Avenue Iron Hand sand filter. So thank you for all folks that helped out on that. Closed on that late last month. And EOR is currently working on the design for that. Design and permitting will be going on here this summer, and we hope to advertise the construction contract over the winter and start implementation next summer, if possible. So that is the main update there. The only other update that I do have is that I have been in contact with the landowners that are at the end of the Goodwin Road area where we're proposing to implement a stormwater wetland. I have been in contact with them, did a site visit the other day, and they're discussing the project with their family and are going to get back to us hopefully here shortly. That project would entail purchase of about 1.5 acres of property at the end of that roadway and the creation of a stormwater pond to intercept any stormwater coming off of that drainage area before the water enters into the Sunrise River. Be happy to take any questions that folks might have about any of the other slides that were presented to the board.
Do you have a map of the Goodwin project?
There should be an image in the presentation, I believe.
Yeah.
It is the schematic.
Yeah.
I don't have that pulled up right now. Tori, do you have that by chance?
There. Well, I can see it here. I do have it pulled up here. I thought maybe you would have a bigger one, you know, that shows. I think I know where this is. I think it's the Christensen farm.
So
The
Peterson.
Peterson? Oh, Peterson, okay. The Sunrise River is going into Comfort Lake, right?
It's
On
a bit upstream of that. It's between Shallow Pond and Comfort Lake.
Okay. Okay, not the one that's closest. This is the farm that's closest to Comfort.
Nope, it's
On West Comfort
kind
Drive,
of
okay.
buried in those little all those developments there, kind of
Mhm.
halfway between Shallow Pond and Comfort Lake, I'd say.
Okay. All right, very good. And this was just, you don't need anything from us, right? This is just update.
Correct.
All right, very good.
Thank you.
Yeah, anything else? No? Any
Nope.
questions for Blaine? Okay, let's move on then. Program update, education and outreach.
Madam
Back to you, Ed.
President, yep,
Mhm.
board members. So we had a YouTube video and then I also included the PDF of the PowerPoint. You had a chance to look at that. Kind of just a mid-season update of everything we got going on with education outreach, and then a little bit of a forecast of kind of what's on the radar coming up. So whether there's questions now, you certainly can email me any other time, but yeah, check out the video. Otherwise, like I said, the PowerPoint slides are included as well.
I don't have any questions for you, but a comment. I really like those, Lake Association newsletters that you're putting out. And, they're just packed with information. The map also, or is it a chart? I think it's a chart, that tells us how much activity is happening within that sub-watershed as far as permits. That's really important. I really like that. I think I sent you an email. I can't remember. I was on the computer so much today, but I think I sent an email to you that asked you to do that for us once a month, once a quarter, you know, whatever makes sense, so that we have all of the 4 sub-watersheds and we can track that activity along with you during the year. That's really a good way to display it. So thank you for that. And I enjoyed your video. It's always really good. We enjoyed those in person, obviously for many years, but it's so much more efficient to look at them online, and then the public has the same access, and so we save some time in the meetings, but that's well done. I'm getting used to them. Okay. Thank you very much. Anyone else want to comment? Ask a question?
No, I just think, it's really, it's gotten stronger each time. I agree with Manager Anderson, but I also see an impact like on Chris Perucci. He seems to be more involved in what we're doing now. And I think, we've dragged him in with this, and then he's been involved in a couple other projects. So he's learning pretty quickly right now. And I think he's got the appetite for spending time looking at some of these things that we're sending out. So that's great work that you got him involved for sure. Thank you.
Well, Adam, I like the stats in there. I spent years watching those kinds of web stats and open rates and click rates. Looks like you're doing it right. It's working well.
Yeah, that was interesting and rewarding to see it move up from the past. That's really good. Okay. Moving on, report of officers and managers. I'll start with Mr. Loth.
Sorry, I have nothing to report.
Okay. How about Manager Taves?
Nothing here either.
Okay, Manager Baki?
Nothing other than spring has sprung.
Thank God. Manager Schmaltz?
The only thing, and maybe everybody's aware of this, but with the Curly Pond treatment for Golden Lake and for us, we had to switch herbicides because of the DNR at the last minute. And that caused more than a little heartburn for our staff and that, but everybody scrambled and did a good job, and we were able to, I think, hopefully treat today with the perfect day for treating. So, and then we got out the newsletter again with people working together, and Chris Lowe, thank you for sending that out to the members. With opening fishing day, it's hopefully good that they'll stay away from those markers that we have out there. So every little bit helps. So that was well done by everyone on that project. Thank you.
I thought your suggestion about going for the extra money from DNR, because they didn't tell us that they were changing out the fish that they were
Right.
used to, or that they had habitually done. So it did create some extra expense, and I doubt that we can get it back, but it's kind of fun to talk about.
Yeah, the other thing is, I think Mike Kenny's mentioned this a number of times from the ag area, that we can't keep using the same herbicide anyway.
Mhm.
So, but I think, so maybe we should take more control of the situation. When we have a year where we only have to treat 13 acres, let's use the expensive stuff then, rather than when we have to treat 167 acres.
Yeah,
So that's a lesson learned, and I think, if Mike Saniger is still online, I think something to put in the back of our heads as we move forward. If we have a low year, let's try to use more expensive stuff to alternate back and forth, so we don't, create resistance to the chemicals, so.
yeah, that's a good idea.
President
Good
Hanson,
idea. Yes,
that I missed the emergency meeting, and I was just wondering if we're gonna get any input from maybe Steve McComish on why we think we had such a huge growth this year.
yeah, I think that's worth,
We could ask him, but I almost know what he's gonna say. He says it just changes from every year. It's different now. Maybe he'll have some specific ideas, but there's so many variables involved. And it's interesting that it was actually on Lake 3, and that's where we normally have our biggest blooms. I think our biggest one we had was 180 acres we had to treat, maybe the second or third year into the program. And it was on Lake 3 where most of it was, so. But that's a good suggestion. Well, I'll drop him a note and ask him if he has any thoughts on that, Chris.
Do we think the alum treatment might have anything to do with it, and the clarity along with the low snow cover? I don't know.
Well, Jerry thinks it was low snow cover, but we've had that before, and I mentioned the alum treatment, but that was for Lake 2, and Lake 2 is not that bad. It's all in Lake 3 if you look at and Lake 1 almost has nothing in it. And that might be because we've been trading for milfoil, I don't know, so that might have had the impact on it too, but.
Sure.
But I'll drop Steve a note and see if he has any thoughts on it, because he certainly was out there, measuring it all.
Well, up here
Staff-
on Moody, we have a real problem here on Moody this year.
yeah, I heard you talking about that the other day, so, or maybe the last meeting.
Yeah.
Maybe ask on Moody.
Okay.
Do we still have staff here?
Adam's here.
Okay.
And Blaine is here. And, Brett and Shaw.
Okay, who's responsible for the AIS program?
Mike's here.
Oh, Mike, okay. All right,
Matthew Henderson has also been helping out quite a bit.
okay, all right, good. The only question I have is, was anyone out on Comfort Lake early this morning? That would be your area, Blaine. They were doing some, I don't know if they were pulling something from the bottom or measuring temperatures at different levels.
None
But I
of
just
our,
wondered, if none of our people?
none of our staff were, no.
Okay, it was probably DNR.
Could have been your
Yeah.
person doing the water quality work.
No, he said there's no one doing it.
Well, you don't have a citizen doing it?
No,
Okay,
not like that. They were in a more professional boat.
okay.
Kind of
Yeah,
like a
we've
John
got,
boat.
our volunteer has a pontoon boat, but he actually retired this year. He had a rib injury, so he wasn't able to
Okay.
perform duty, so staff's taking that over.
Yeah, no, this is like one of those John boats, that was used on Comfort and Big Comfort to do or Little Comfort, to do the carp study. So that's what it was like. I'm sure it was DNR, could have been Chisago County. Every once in a while, they come down and do their own measurements on Comfort. Officers, I assume that means the legal and the EOR folks are engineers. Anything, I'll start with, is he still here? I can't tell.
Who? Chuck.
Chuck, well, Chuck is here, but no, I meant Greg.
Greg is here too, I believe.
Greg, do you have anything to update us on?
I don't have any specific updates planned for tonight.
Okay, thank you. And Chuck, anything from you?
I do not, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, summary and approval of board direction.
Madam Chair, managers, not very much. I made a note that President Anderson will work with staff in developing an approach to the DNR to talk about shoreline vegetation protection, and then that staff will share the Natural Shorelines Partnership White Paper with the managers when it's completed.
Okay. That's it?
That's all I have.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else the board wants to talk about or mention before we call it quits? Okay, a motion to adjourn is in order.
I will make the motion to adjourn.
I will
Thank
second.
you. Thank you.
Hey, Manager Lowe,
Aye.
Manager Schmaltz,
Aye.
Manager Bachman,
Aye.
Manager Days,
Aye.
President Anderson.
Aye. Good night, everyone. It's
Yep.
8:15. Good job.
Yep, nice job,
night.
everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night.